Hi everyone, and welcome to the second session of today. And our session today is actually adding polish to your school newsletter. Just change that banner shortly. And our presenter today is Eric Dubas, who is based in Dublin. And Eric is a trainer and an e-learning content creator and an all-round good guy, as I said this morning. And Eric's going to be leading us through some of his amazing InDesign skills. You can see he uses quite a lot of Adobe products. During this session, we will have links. What we will do, just while Eric shares his screen for us, I'll pop Eric's Adobe Education Exchange link in the pod in just a minute. But if you have any questions for Eric, please pop them down in this bottom left-hand side, and just in the goodness of time, we'll access those later in the day. And later in the session, we'll answer those questions for you. And I'll pop different links up in this Adobe session links as we go. This session is being recorded, and you can access a recording back on the same page that you did your registration on. The page has just gone in the links pod, so please feel free to access that, watch that, and this morning's session, if it was a little bit too early for you, you can grab this morning's recording at this link as well. So I'm going to head on out of here. Are you there, Eric?
I am indeed. Good evening, good morning.
And good night. No, sorry, I'm going to mute myself now, and I'll see you all later. Bye.
Hi everyone, good morning for some of you, good afternoon for others, and good evening or good night for some of you. Let's go back to where we left off this morning. We had InDesign, we brought in some text and looked at some of the concepts for setting up your classroom, some goals, some targets, and some workflow settings. We left it at the page just before we had a tiny technical glitch, but that's okay. So the idea here is to apply one of my favorite golden rule, lazy is good, as in work smart, not hard. Is I did a bit of prep work in Microsoft Word when the text was typed. If we set up some, not even a template, but some simple ground rules, it simply means when the text comes in, the formatting is much easier. So I'm going to scroll to the next page, and I'm going to place my text. If I click, it'll be grand. File place, or Control D or Apple D for the Mac users. And I'm going to go to my text that is formatted. Open, and I'm going to place it. Now, a couple of things that I would like you to notice is that little red plus in the corner telling me that I'm not showing off everything. So let's stretch it out. And you see it disappears once I see the whole text. What I like about this is that automatically the text is formatted, which is very nice. It doesn't take much prep work. All I have to make sure is that my text in Microsoft Word is using styles named exactly the same way as the names are used in InDesign. Even the case sensitivity is important here. So the text comes in and it's automatically formatted. I have a style for the title, a style for what's called the kicker, or the first paragraph there, the introduction, and then a bit of styling either for the text as a paragraph or the text for the character style. As you can see, every quotation or every citation has been formatted in a different way. So that makes the work much easier and much more smooth in a certain way. There's a couple of things that we need to kind of keep an eye on. As I said this morning, that one of our goals was to have a nice and fresh look and something a bit more glossy. So there's a couple of things we're going to do here. The first one is, for example, to break the text a bit smaller, maybe, and grab that little red plus with my black arrow, the shortcut being V on your keyboard or escape, and I'm going to click on that red plus and place the rest of the text. Now what's interesting here is that as I grab the first one and shrink it, and even if I hold for a second before I move and then start moving, as you can see, I could push-pull my text until the cut kind of fits nicely into what I want to do, which allows me then to have a photograph or a picture on the top right, bottom left, and kind of start balancing my page. What's interesting here is that if I get rid of the second box, I'm going to select it and delete it. The text is not really gone, just a frame for it. Just to remind you that you need to be inside your text with your text cursor in order to see in the info panel what is your overset text. It takes a couple of seconds to calculate it, and it says word, so many words are overset, as in sticking out, basically. So a couple of options. I go back to my original document and I edit it again to shorten it, or I give it a bit more space. In this case, I'd be happy enough to give it more space, like this and like that, until I have my article fully fitting in here. There you go. Now that's kind of nice. I'm going to put a large photo at the top, so File, Place. I'm going to my list of pictures, images, and in this case I'm not going to use a JPEG, but I'm going to use a Photoshop file because I kind of prepare that Photoshop file in a way to make it a bit more interesting. I'm going to place my picture. As you can see, I'm kind of stuck with the proportion of that box because they are the proportions of the original image that I'm trying to place. Couple of options. I could hold the Shift key down on my keyboard, which breaks those proportions, and go to this point, or I'm going to undo this, simply place the picture as large as I want, and maybe mask the rest. A lot of InDesign users a couple of versions ago got very confused with this little circle in the middle, and I have to admit sometimes I'm kind of cursing at it because I grab it by accident when I don't want to, and that's very handy. It gives you access to the content of the frame and not the frame itself, which allows me in this case to reposition, recenter my image nicely until it fits in the right place, and close this. So we're not too bad. We're slightly kind of different. Becomes a bit interesting. Why did I bring a Photoshop picture in the first place? Well, simply because I could do this. Select the picture, right-click on it, and ask to look at my layers. And this, to me, changes absolutely everything. I'm allowed to go in, take my picture, try a bit of this and a bit of that, different filters, different effects, and we know that we could store them all on layers. And those layers, of course, I have access to them in my layer options here. So let's have a look at what kind of options do I have. I'm going to put that aside, turn on the preview button on, and let's have a look. I have my original layer, one with added filter. For example, I have one where the image has this crazy lens flare. Of course, it's always sunny in Ireland, as you all probably know, so maybe a bit of sunshine was a bit nicer. What if I asked for a sunny day where, oh, there's too much light coming in, but it means my adjustment layer is a bit too strong, or simply I could turn that off and ask for a black and white on my original, and I get the access to the black and white filter. Now, because they're all layer effects, it means as well I might end up with too many layers. And if I didn't take the time, like I did in this case, to name them properly, as quite often it happens, it ends up being a big long list of layers that is a bit confusing to know which ones to turn off, which ones to turn on to get the effect you want. And if you know a bit about Photoshop, there's a great tool then that comes into play called Layer Comp. Layer Comp is a short for layer composition, and it means I'll be allowed to save options in Photoshop under one name, and that option will remember these layers are on, those layers are off. It remembers the position, the opacity, and elements like that to generate or to memorize actually those options, giving me access to a kind of a shortcut if you want. But of course, all of that has to be created in Photoshop in advance. This is fantastic because what is the alternative? The alternative is I go to Photoshop, I create one option and I save as JPEG, and I create another option, which is another save as, and another option, and I end up with 3 or 4 or 10 different images on my system, and trying to juggle between them to find out which one is which option is not very interesting. So in this case, I'm happy enough to stick with my lovely lens flare, sunny day, bright and everything. So jazz it up a little bit and click on OK. Your links panel will be slightly updated. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Here, your links panel giving you all the details. And here's that picture coming from Photoshop. If I click on the little pencil here, I'll switch back to Photoshop and it shows me all my layers, and any adjustment I make here will automatically reflect in InDesign. So again, even better, no additional export. No, I need to adjust it a little bit, so let's go back to the file, export it again, go back to InDesign, refresh it. So all of that works much better. So I'm going to close Photoshop here and back to InDesign. So that's my picture. First aspect, I could make them come with options from Photoshop. Second thing I could do to it is use one of the simplest tools in Photoshop called Selection Tool. You have different lassos or different other tools to create your selection. And in this case, I'll be able to take my picture frame, object, and I'm going to pick clipping path. Clipping path does exactly what it says on the tin. It's going to clip around the path, my picture. Let's open the options. I have the choice between alpha channels, which is saving my selection, or if I prefer the Photoshop path tool using the pen tool and saving that as a path, it works actually very well as well. It depends on what kind of image you have. In this case, I've felt having a go at it with my lasso tool and cut off my picture. In this case, I decided why not keep the picture, but maybe, just maybe, the flag could come out a bit of the picture. And if I put a frame around this picture and make my text go around this, that might give it a kind of a, I don't know, fancy effect, if that's what you like. Let's click on OK and back outside. The third option I'm going to put on that picture frame. So Photoshop give me the layers. Second option, because I had a selection saved as a alpha channel, I'll be able to cut around. Of course, I could have isolated completely the flag, but that was a bit too predictable. Then the third option here, I'm going to go to my text wrap, and once more, all those layers, all those panels, sorry, on the side here, are all coming from the window menu. So in here, I'll be able to ask the wrap around at a small distance, let's say a couple of millimeters for the moment, and around the same as clipping. So now when my text, where are you? With my black arrow here, goes a bit higher up, automatically the flag seems to be pushing the text away a little bit. W to have that preview, and immediately I'm going away from this flat, plain look that I could get otherwise. Another thing I could do to my text, and it's a feature that I find absolutely fantastic in InDesign, is the ability to cut my text into columns. Now, nothing stops me from reducing this column, linking it to the next one, and linking it to the next one, but it makes it a bit less flexible and less practical to use. And as well, aligning the lines across columns is a small little detail, but for the reader, if those lines across columns are slightly off, the eye is expecting a certain rhythm, a certain alignment, and if it's ever so slightly off, even if the reader doesn't understand why, it makes it harder to read. So I'm selecting my text frame here, and I go to my very useful option panel at the top and ask for 2 columns, maybe 3. 3 columns sounds good. 4 columns are a bit too tight, so let's keep it to 3 for the moment. So makes it a bit more interesting, why not? But one detail that I'd love to change is that title. We got our second green flag. I'd like it to go across the top. So of course, what would be my first reaction? Well, it would be to draw a text frame for that, and then another text frame for the rest of the text. And again, I keep juggling between text frames. Now, recently we got a great feature added into it, which allows me to double click on my text, highlight my headline here, and locate at the top here the span. And it allows me to say that highlighted text here will span across all my columns. Because the same text frame is divided in 3 columns, the lines are perfectly lined up, it allows me to have an article that works really, really well for me. Okay, maybe move it up a little bit so the word communities has enough room to go at the back. Perfect. And this Councillor Baker here would be lovely if it started at the top of the next column. And what's my first temptation? My first reaction is to aim for that return key. And return key should be banned in some cases, especially in this one, because we cannot put several returns or something that to make something fit, because we cannot resize those returns. So in this case, I'm going to look on my Enter key. It's usually the one on the far right where your numpad is. And when I press that, it creates a column break. So automatically, that text continues at the top of the next column. In the case that I have text boxes linked from one to another, it means it'll go to the next text box. If the next text box happens to be on the next page, this is where it's going to go. So my page is taking shape. One little detail, maybe I could bring in import place is better. Something that I called in a folder there clip out, with a bit of irony because it is not clip out. Clip out has usually a connotation of not so nice, bog standard and things like that. But why not have an Illustrator file instead? Open, brings it up, place it. Now, this is why I like so much InDesign. If I look at my links panel, I'm allowed to go into Illustrator using my Edit Original and maybe change the color of one of the items. Add a piece of text. I'm going to do something not so nice just to demonstrate, okay? Echo, select the text, make it really big, and place it on top. Just to demonstrate that when I close this and save, automatically when I come back to InDesign, my picture is updated. And guess what? It's the same principle for Photoshop and the same principle for my text. If I edit my text in Microsoft Word or someone else does it, automatically this will be updated. If it doesn't do it automatically, I'll be warned on the top left of each frame by a yellow triangle saying, you're not up to date, you might need to refresh. Double click on that triangle or select the item in your links panel and hit refresh and you're up to date. So that means I could bring a whole team of students working on photos, students working on illustrations and diagrams and plans, a whole team working on text, and just by a click of a refresh, my whole page gets updated. So we have a big team working on simple documents. Now, that's great. There's a couple of other things I wanted to show you. Oh yeah. One of the things I like as well is in here, we've been placing text and pictures a bit at random. So I remember a few years back with other applications, I would drag a guideline here, and I'm quite lucky because I could type the X value on the top left there to say, oh, I want it at 50. And I did measure so it's an A4, so it's 210 in width, minus so much for the gutters and so many columns, and do the math, and guess what? By the time I drag and drop my last guideline in the right place, A, I did the math probably wrong, and B, oh no, actually I need an extra column. Of course, that means I have to restart everything from scratch. Great tool, layout, create guides. Remember, golden rule number 2, lazy is good, which means work smart, not hard. Let InDesign do it for me. Let's preview the result, remove the old ones, and in this case I would like maybe 5 rows, 4 columns. That looks quite good, and click on OK. Now I'm perfect. It's perfect for me. I could just place my items from one intersection to the other. Everything is automatically neatly organized, neatly spaced out. It works fantastically well. Now, this is for one page, which becomes a bit of a problem when I need it for another page and another page and another page. So I advise you to look at, in your page panel there, at what master does. A master is like the repetitive background. I don't want to use the word template because template is something else, but it's nearly like a template that automatically updates the feature that I put on the master there on all the pages. A master for all the pages A. Of course, if I create more masters with new master or duplicating this one, I'll be able to have B and C and D and name them whatever way I want, something that makes sense, of course, to me, and apply different structure or different background layout for printing and non-printing elements to help my design. Now I'm going to pick in this layout 3 little pictures. So I'm going to ask for 1, 2, and 3. Here you go, 3 pictures, and place them on my design. I could, of course, place them one by one, flick with my arrows on my keyboard up and down to choose, no, I prefer this one first, this one second, no, actually this one first. That would be great. There's an option that I really, really like, is going from here to there, and I don't let go. While my mouse is still pressed, I press the arrow up once and the arrow up twice, and look at that. I have a frame repeated 3 times because I have 3 pictures. If I press to the right, I would add columns. If I press to the left, I remove columns. And when I let go, let's say up to here, I have my 3 pictures placed. No need of copy pasting the frame. No need to kind of guessing the size of the frame. I even caught people with a scale rule on their screen, measuring things across the page on the screen to make sure they were the right size with a scale rule. And this is where, you know, my OCD kicks in, the palpitation and cold sweat, and kind of go, no, come on. InDesign could do that so much for you. We always have the width and the height. We have a great aligning set of tools to make sure that our selection is perfectly lined up, perfectly spaced out. Or in this case, draw my boxes and the pictures come in. Now, as you can see, the pictures don't necessarily fill the space or the frame properly. So let's ask them to do that with my fill to frame proportionally and stick the auto fit on. So if I were to resize anything, the picture would go with it. Pictures in, I bring my text, and just to prove my point that I was making earlier on, I'm going to take another piece of text that is formatted as well. So let's pick our champion hurlers there, from here to there. And look at that. The title is formatted the same as the previous one. The kicker is formatted the same as before. Fantastic. This is a piece of news. So why not give it a little header called sports news? And I need to design a little something. But again, if I start designing a little something, automatically from page to page, it might not look the same. So here comes the library. File, new library. It's going to create a little file on your desktop or somewhere that you choose, and it becomes this big page of stickers. Except it's magic stickers because it's never ending. If I open my library, I design a little piece of text with a bit of formatting to it, and I simply dragged it from my page into the library to save it there. So I have book reviews, club reviews, excursion school. Do I have sport? No, I don't have sport. So let's make it. I'm going to bring one in onto my page, just drag and drop. As you can see, when I bring it in, it doesn't take it off my library, so that's why they're magic stickers. It's sports news. There you go. And I'm going to place that at the top. If I want to save that in my library, I'm simply going to drag and drop it in here. It's called Untitled. Sports news sounds easier. There you go. And last piece of text, if I were to bring a next piece of text called, there you go, and bring it maybe across here. Fantastic. It's formatted the same way once more. My title is the same, my kicker is the same, my article is formatted the same way. Why? Because I follow the same rules in Microsoft Word. Now, this is one of our club writing competition. I'm going to grab the club news up here, press W, and look at that. Piece of cake. So, a bit of planning, a bit of prep, and then it becomes a simple jigsaw of pictures from Photoshop, illustration using Illustrator, a bit of text, and it allows you to create your document. This document then could be printed online and use some services like issue.com to easily put it online. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I'm looking forward to some questions and maybe some of your tips and tricks that you learned across the years, so I could learn something tonight. Can you save text from the library and import them into Muse? Not that I know of. The only way to import things into Muse, as far as I remember, there's a lovely import the buttons from Photoshop. I find that copy-paste the text actually works really, really well. But unless someone knows a great trick between InDesign and Muse, I don't think they talk too much to each other. Couple of things I did for Muse was to design some pages in InDesign and export them actually as JPEGs. So for example, to advertise the cover of a book, or read more in this article, or something like that, to create on a web page, I was able, instead of taking a snapshot, like a screenshot of your page in InDesign, it was actually quite good to export them as JPEG. And use even the, the slideshow or something like that to create that flick through the pages within the website. It's actually quite good in Muse for that. Pip, you want to say something? I hope I wasn't going too fast. There's so much to say in so little time. It's hard to stop myself. Pip, no, we can't hear you. Personally, I can't hear you unless I did something wrong with my sound.